Welcome to the Southern Alps of New Zealand. We're currently standing on Mount Alpha, a mountain just above my hometown of Wanaka. In this video, I'm going to be taking you on a journey across the Southern Alps and through the Haast Pass to the west coast. And along the way, we're going to look at a few different species and how they've come to be in this amazing environment. Now, these mountains you see here, these were pushed up by tectonic forces about 15 million years ago to the size they are now. Now, this created a mountain range spanning the length of the South Island. This is a couple cool things. One of them is it means all the incoming weather from the west dumps its rain on the west coast, and as the weather comes over, the air dries out and you get these golden fields you see up here. This makes the east coast much drier than the west coast. Now, this has a big impact on the species that live here. Now, as these mountains uplift, we get a thing called vicariance. What that is it's a geographical separation of species, usually because of barriers in between them. And they can't disperse their seeds across these mountains. And so you get species that have been blocked from migrating to another area because of the land features in between. Yeah. On the west coast you'll find mosses, big trees, rainforests, whereas on the east coast you'll find more stuff like this. Tussocks, shrubs and other dryland species. Central Otago here is known for having one of the driest climates in New Zealand. In Wanaka we only get 680 millimeters of rain in a whole year. You get that in a week on the west coast. So here we have a matagari plant. Now, these plants are generally only found on the eastern side of the Southern Alps. That's because we're in the rain shadow of the Southern Alps. These plants grow in really dry climates, and as you can see they've got woody stalks and big thorns. If you look here, you can see a new growth on the plant compared to the old growth over here. It's dried up and it's got lots of lichen and mosses growing on it. So you may look at this and think, oh, but that plant's dead. But actually, it's not. You can still see there's life in it here on all the leaves. What it is the plant gets this grey, dull colour because it's a way of keeping the water in the plant. It's a water retention, so the plant can survive in the driest of climates. Matagari is a nitrogen fixing plant, which means it can take nitrogen from the air and put it back into the soil. This means it can live in places where it usually couldn't. Even in soils that are nutrient depleted, it allows to put more nutrient into the ground so other species can regenerate. The interesting thing about these plants is that these thorn needles were once used by Māori as tattooing needles. These plants can live to be 100 years old, and this plant here, apparently it's 60 years old. Made it to the Makarora River, this one here you see behind me. Now, this feeds into Lake Wanaka, just down there. And as you can see here, there's both open dry grasses and big trees surrounding us. So as we get further into the pass and towards the west coast, all this vegetation, it's all changing. In the middle of the Haast Pass. You can see here, even giant rock faces like this still have green growth on them. It's because there's so much rain that this area gets. cold. We've made it to the west coast. It's a pretty beautiful way. We're currently about 15 kilometres north of Greymouth on the side of a little hill called Mount George. Now this area gets between 2,000 and 3,000 millimetres of rain each year. That's a hell of a contrast to what we got in Wanaka. Check out the amount of greenery on this side of the Alps. You can see trees for as far as you can see. That's because of all the rain we get over here. Now you may ask, why do we get all the rain on the west coast? That's a good question. Well, thank goodness you asked. In New Zealand, most of our weather comes in from the northwest. This means the air is warm and full of moisture. The air travels across the sea, and when it hits the southern Alps, it gets pushed up. As the air gets pushed up, it moves into colder air, and this cold air can't support so much moisture. The water in the air then condensates and turns to clouds. The air keeps pushing through, and as the air rises, it just can't hold the water anymore. All the rain drops out on the west coast as rain. The air then moves over the southern Alps and into the east coast. Once it's on the east coast, the air is all dry and there's no more moisture left for it, which is why the east coast so commonly gets droughts. This is a process called orographic rainfall. It's a process of rain caused by geographical features pushing air up and causing the water to condensate and turn into rain. This orographic rainfall means you'll find forests like this on the west coast. This is a podocarp rainforest, which only survives in moist, temperate climates, which is why you only find them on the west coast. A long time ago, the whole of New Zealand would have been a similar height above sea level. There were no snow-capped peaks or mountainous areas. It would have all been covered in bush and forest. In just the last 5 million years is when things have changed. The mountains have pushed up, and as they do this, it causes species to adapt to survive in the harsh environments. A great example of this adaptation are these cushion plants you can see here. Now these are effectively compressed shrubs, and they've got tiny branches ending in tightly packed woolen leaves. This forms a continuous surface that minimises water evaporation but still lets rain penetrate easily. This means that they can survive in the harsh climates on rocks and at high elevations. Inside the plant is all the old dead material and old tiny little branches. These become soft and act like a sponge to absorb all the water that it gets, allowing it to retain nutrients in this environment. Here on Mount George, we're not fully in the alpine. You'd call this a sub-alpine zone. We're actually only a few hundred metres above sea level, but the climate here is so harsh that nothing grows above about this big. This is pretty similar to what you'd find in alpine areas. The environmental conditions are just so harsh that nothing's able to grow to its full potential. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you've learnt something about how the creation of the Southern Alps has influenced the species of New Zealand. Thanks for watching.